You know that moment when you're surrounded by people but feel completely alone. When you've just spent an hour scrolling through hundreds of posts, messages, and updates, yet somehow feel emptier than when you started. We live in the most connected time in human history. We can reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. Yet loneliness has become the epidemic of our generation. We're all linked up, but somehow disconnected from what matters most. Where in the world are you right now? If it feels right, share in the comments below. Maybe you're commuting home from another draining day, earbuds in, surrounded by strangers. Perhaps you're in your own home but feeling like a visitor in your own life. Here's what I want you to do. Find something soft, a cushion, a blanket, maybe just let your shoulders drop. Take one breath that's just for you. Not checking anything, not doing anything, just breathing. For the next few hours, let's explore something that might change everything. 2,500 years ago, Buddha discovered why we feel so lonely despite being so connected. And more importantly, he found the way home. You already have everything you need. Not in your next notification, not in someone else's approval, not in another attempt to fill that hollow feeling with more connections. Right here, right now. In this breath, we're sharing. Your loneliness is about to become your greatest teacher. Think about this for a moment. You probably have more ways to connect with people than any human in history. Your phone holds thousands of contacts, endless social media feeds, instant messaging, video calls that can reach across oceans in seconds. Yet here you are, listening to this, perhaps hoping someone might understand the particular kind of emptiness that comes with all this connection. This isn't your fault. There's nothing broken about you for feeling this way. What you're experiencing is the beautiful paradox of our time. We've mastered the technology of connection, but somehow lost the art of it. Picture this familiar scene. It's late at night, and sleep eludes you. You reach for your phone, and the blue light illuminates your face as you scroll through the lives of people you call friends. Here's someone posting photos from their weekend getaway, all smiles and sunset views. There's another person sharing a work achievement. An old friend just announced their engagement with a photo that looks magazine perfect. You double tap to like. You leave a comment with a heart emoji. You might even share something yourself, maybe that carefully chosen photo from last week, the one where you look genuinely happy. For a moment, you feel connected. The little red notification badges light up. People are responding. You exist in their digital world. But then you set the phone down, and the silence feels heavier than before. Because somewhere beneath all those connections, there's a question that keeps arising. Does anyone really know me? This scene plays out millions of times every night across the world. In homes everywhere, people of all ages and backgrounds find themselves united by this shared experience of digital connection that somehow leaves them feeling more alone than ever. The numbers tell a story that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. We send over 60 billion messages on WhatsApp every day. We upload 4 billion hours of video to YouTube monthly. We share 95 million photos on Instagram daily. Yet surveys consistently show that loneliness has reached epidemic levels across all age groups. We live in a world where daily commutes happen in complete silence. 50 people on a train, all staring at their screens, connected to people who aren't there, while ignoring the people who are. We can tell you exactly what acquaintances had for breakfast, but we've never had a real conversation with our neighbors. Even our most intimate gatherings have been transformed. Family dinners, where everyone sits together but exists in separate digital worlds. Birthday parties, where people experience the celebration through their camera phones rather than their actual presence. Wedding ceremonies, where guests watch the ceremony through screens as they record it for later, missing the actual moment happening before their eyes. This is the tender ache of our time. We're seen constantly, photographed, tagged, mentioned, messaged. Our digital selves are witnessed by hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. Yet, we carry this profound sense of being unknown. It's like standing in a crowded room where everyone knows your name but no one knows your heart. Consider how many birthday wishes you receive each year from people who barely know your current life. Hundreds of friends can wish you well, yet when you're going through something difficult, you might struggle to find someone you feel comfortable calling. You have connections, but perhaps no real intimacy. That distinction between connection and intimacy, between being seen and being known, that's where the loneliness lives. We've created avatars of ourselves, highlight reels, carefully edited versions of our lives, and people connect with those images, those curated moments. But the messy, beautiful, vulnerable reality of who we are, that often remains hidden, even from ourselves. The pressure to maintain these digital personas has created an exhausting way of living. Every experience must be documented, every thought must be shareable, every emotion must be transformed into content. We've learned to live our lives as if we're constantly being watched, constantly being judged, constantly needing to prove our worth through external validation. Even our private moments have become public performances. We take photos of our meals, our workouts, our quiet moments, our struggles. We've lost the ability to simply experience life without immediately thinking about how to present that experience to others. The boundary between living and performing has dissolved completely. The Buddha, 2,500 years ago, described something that sounds remarkably familiar. He spoke of hungry ghosts, beings with enormous appetites and tiny mouths, never able to satisfy their hunger, no matter how much they consume. Isn't that what we've become with our digital connections? Endlessly consuming likes, shares, comments, messages, yet never quite feeling full. We check our phones on average 96 times a day. 96 times we reach for connection, for validation, for the feeling that we matter. But each time we put the device down, the hunger returns, because we're feeding the wrong part of ourselves. You might know this feeling, getting dozens of likes on a photo and still feeling empty inside. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It makes you more desperate, not less. External validation, no matter how abundant, can never satisfy our deepest need for authentic connection. The design of these platforms amplifies this problem. They're engineered to capture and hold our attention, to make us crave the next notification, the next like, the next comment. The variable reward schedule, never knowing when the next validation will come, creates the same psychological patterns found in gambling addiction. We've become trapped in feedback loops designed by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral economists. Our brains release dopamine when we post something and receive positive feedback. But like any addiction, we need increasingly higher doses to achieve the same feeling. What started as connection has become compulsion. Here's what's really happening. In our rush to connect with everyone, we've disconnected from the one person who's always with us, ourselves. We know what hundreds of acquaintances had for lunch, but we've forgotten how to sit quietly with our own thoughts. We can video chat with someone on the other side of the world, but we struggle to have a conversation with our own hearts. Think about the last time you were truly alone with yourself. Not alone with your phone, not alone with the TV on, not alone while multitasking. Just you, in silence, with your own presence. For many of us, it's been so long, we can't remember. And when we do find ourselves in that space, it feels uncomfortable, almost frightening. We immediately reach for a distraction, a device, anything to fill the void. You've probably experienced this yourself. You sit down somewhere peaceful, maybe with just a cup of tea or coffee. For a brief moment, you're present, looking around, breathing. Then, the fidgeting begins. The nervous energy. Within minutes, your phone is out, and you're scrolling through something, anything, to escape the discomfort of being alone with yourself. We've become afraid of our own company. We've outsourced our entertainment, our validation, our sense of purpose to external sources. No wonder we feel lost when those sources disappear. The statistics paint a stark picture. Depression and anxiety rates have skyrocketed alongside our connectivity. The more connected we become digitally, the more disconnected we feel emotionally. Young adults report feeling lonelier than elderly people, despite being the most digitally connected generation in history. But it's not just young people. Parents find themselves competing with devices for their children's attention. Couples sit in restaurants, both staring at their phones instead of each other. Friends gather for coffee but spend more time looking at their screens than into each other's eyes. We're together but separate, connected but isolated. We live in an age of constant stimulation. Notifications ping throughout the day, demanding our attention. We've trained ourselves to respond immediately to every buzz, every chime, every red badge. Our attention has been scattered across dozens of platforms, hundreds of relationships, thousands of pieces of information. Is it any wonder we feel fragmented? The depth of human connection requires sustained attention, patience, presence. But our digital habits have trained us for the opposite. Quick hits, instant gratification, surface-level engagement. We've become accustomed to skimming rather than diving deep, to liking rather than loving, to following rather than befriending. Even our language has changed to reflect this shift. We follow people instead of befriending them. We have feeds like animals instead of conversations like humans. We like things with a single tap instead of expressing genuine appreciation. The very words we use diminish the richness of human connection. But what if that void isn't something to be filled? What if it's something to be explored? The Buddha spoke of something called the island of self, not the ego-driven, selfie-taking, social media self. Something deeper. He said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." In other words, find the light that already exists within you, rather than constantly seeking illumination from external sources. This teaching feels almost revolutionary in our hyper-connected world. We've been conditioned to believe that connection is always about reaching out, toward others, toward experiences, toward more. But what if the most profound connection is the one we make when we reach in? In ancient times, before electricity, before technology, people naturally experienced regular periods of silence and solitude. They had time to reflect, to process their experiences, to simply be with themselves. These weren't considered empty times but sacred times, opportunities for inner discovery and renewal. Now we've filled every possible moment with stimulation. We listen to podcasts while walking, watch videos while eating, scroll through social media while waiting in line. We've eliminated almost every opportunity for genuine solitude and reflection. No wonder we feel scattered and disconnected from ourselves. Here's something that might sound strange at first. What if your loneliness isn't a problem to be solved? What if it's actually a form of homesickness? Not homesickness for a place, but homesickness for yourself. When you're homesick, you're longing for a place where you feel safe, known, accepted, exactly as you are. A place where you don't have to perform or pretend. A place where you can simply be. What if that place exists within you? This isn't just poetic language. There's something profound here that our ancestors understood, but we've forgotten in our rush toward external connection. Every spiritual tradition speaks of it in different ways. The kingdom of heaven within, the true self, the Buddha nature. They're all pointing to the same revolutionary idea. You already contain what you're looking for. But we've become strangers to ourselves. We know our social media analytics better than our breathing patterns. We can navigate complex digital algorithms, but struggle to navigate our own emotions. We've outsourced our sense of worth to external validation, likes, shares, comments, responses. No wonder we feel empty when the notifications stop coming. Consider how different family gatherings have become. Multiple generations sitting in the same room, but each absorbed in their individual screens. The art of conversation, of sitting together in comfortable silence, of truly being present with one another, these have become rare and precious skills. We've created a culture of continuous partial attention. We're always half present, half distracted, half listening. Even in our most intimate relationships, we struggle to give our full attention. How can we expect to feel truly connected when we're never truly present? The irony is breathtaking. We have access to more information about human connection than any generation before us. We understand psychology, neuroscience, the mechanics of relationships. Yet we're experiencing unprecedented levels of loneliness and disconnection. It's as if we've learned everything about connection except how to actually connect. Here's what the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago that we're just beginning to rediscover. The quality of our connections with others can only be as deep as our connection with ourselves. You can't give what you don't have. You can't love others fully if you haven't learned to be at home with yourself. When you feel that familiar loneliness creeping in, whether you're scrolling through your phone late at night or sitting in a crowded place feeling invisible, there's another way to respond. Instead of immediately reaching out, try reaching in. Instead of asking, "Who can make me feel less alone?" try asking, "How can I come home to myself?" This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of seeing loneliness as evidence that you're lacking something, you begin to see it as an invitation. An invitation to return to yourself. To remember who you are beneath all the digital noise. The most connected people aren't those with the most followers or friends. They're the ones who have learned to be comfortable in their own presence. They've discovered that the home they were seeking in all those external connections was waiting for them within. This is where the real revolution begins. Not in getting more connected to more people, but in getting connected to the one person you've perhaps been avoiding, yourself. Not the self you present to the world, but the one who exists in the quiet moments between posts, between calls, between notifications. The Buddha offered humanity a profound gift. He showed us that we don't need to fix ourselves, improve ourselves, or connect ourselves to something external to find peace. We simply need to come home, to recognize that we already are what we're seeking. This ancient wisdom speaks directly to our modern predicament. In a world that profits from our disconnection, from our constant seeking, from our perpetual dissatisfaction, the most radical act might be to simply sit still, to breathe, to come home to yourself. Let me tell you about the most beautiful teaching you'll ever encounter. It's about discovering that everything you've been searching for in all those connections, all those notifications, all those external validations, it's already here. It's been waiting patiently for your return. Are you ready to discover what you've been searching for in all those connections? Are you ready to come home? "2,500 years ago, the Buddha made a discovery that speaks directly to our modern crisis of connection. He found that home is not a place you travel to. Home is within you. There is an island, he taught, that you must return to, the island of yourself. This isn't just beautiful poetry. This is practical wisdom for anyone who has ever felt lonely in a crowded room. Loneliness has become the defining experience of our time. We feel profoundly alone, even when surrounded by people. We are, as Thich Nhat Hanh beautifully puts it, lonely together. We gather in coffee shops, in offices, in our own living rooms, each person absorbed in their individual digital world, physically present, but emotionally absent. There's a vacuum inside us that we can all feel. An emptiness that seems to grow larger the more we try to fill it with external connections. We believe instinctively that if we can just connect with enough people, receive enough messages, get enough likes and comments, this feeling of loneliness will disappear. so we reach for our devices. Technology supplies us with countless ways to stay connected. We're always plugged in, always available, always linked to someone somewhere. We check email multiple times a day, send messages constantly, post updates about our lives, expecting others to respond. We keep ourselves busy throughout the entire day with the work of connecting. But something strange happens. Despite all this connection, despite all this communication, despite all this digital togetherness, we continue to feel lonely. The emptiness doesn't go away. Sometimes it actually grows stronger. We're more connected than any generation in human history, yet loneliness has reached epidemic proportions across all age groups. Why doesn't all this connection heal our loneliness? The Buddha discovered the answer 2,500 years ago, and Thich Nhat Hanh has spent his life sharing this wisdom with our modern world. The problem isn't that we're not connected enough to other people. The problem is that we've become disconnected from ourselves. In our daily lives, we walk without knowing that we're walking. We're alive, but we don't know that we're alive. We're present in our bodies, but absent from our own experience. We are losing ourselves. We are not ourselves. This happens almost all day long. Think about your typical day. How often are you fully present to what you're actually doing? When you're walking, are you aware that you're walking? Or are you lost in thoughts about where you're going? When you're eating, do you taste your food? Or are you scrolling through your phone? When you're with people, are you really with them? Or are you thinking about what you'll say next? We've become strangers to our own lives. We've learned to live in a constant state of distraction, always somewhere else mentally than where we are physically. No wonder we feel lonely. We've abandoned ourselves. But here's where the Buddha's teaching becomes revolutionary. The solution isn't to try harder to connect with others. The solution is to stop. To sit down, to perform what Thich Nhat Hanh calls an act of revolution. When you sit down mindfully, you cut off that state of losing yourself. You interrupt the pattern of being everywhere except where you actually are. You refuse to participate, even for a few minutes, in the endless distraction that has become normal life. This is why sitting meditation is so different from everything else you might try to feel less lonely. You're not reaching for your phone. You're not trying to connect with someone else. You're not seeking external validation or stimulation. You're simply sitting down and choosing to be present with yourself. You don't need an iPhone or a computer to do this. You don't need any technology at all. You just need to sit down mindfully and breathe mindfully. In a few seconds, literally just seconds, you can connect with yourself. Your breath has been waiting for you this whole time. While you've been seeking connection everywhere else, your breath has been offering you the most intimate connection possible, the connection between your mind and your body, between your awareness and your life. When you begin to pay attention to your breathing, you immediately know what's going on. What's happening in your body right now? What emotions are you carrying? What's the quality of your thoughts? For the first time in perhaps hours or days, you're actually present to your own experience. And in that moment of presence, you make an extraordinary discovery. You are already home. Not the home you left this morning, not the place where your mail is delivered, but home in the deepest sense, at ease in your own presence, comfortable with your own company, accepting of your own experience exactly as it is. But if you're like most people, when you first turn your attention inward, you might be surprised by what you find. Home has become a mess. You've left it unattended for so long, focusing all your energy on external connections, that your inner world feels chaotic, neglected, overwhelming. This is perfectly normal. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches that going home means accepting the situation as it is. Yes, it's a mess. Yes, you've allowed things to become scattered and neglected inside yourself. But that's okay, because you've been away for a long time. Now you're home, and you can begin to tidy up. With your mindful breathing, you begin to bring order to your inner world, not by forcing or fighting, but by simply being present. You begin to smile at everything you find inside yourself, the sadness, the fear, the loneliness, the anxiety. You allow your body to release the tension it's been carrying. The Buddha taught exactly how to do this, how to breathe in a way that releases physical tension, how to be aware of your feelings without being overwhelmed by them, how to bring the same kindness to your inner world that you would offer to a dear friend. When you become aware of your loneliness, instead of trying to escape it or fix it, you can learn to greet it like an old friend. My dear loneliness, you might say silently, I know you are there. I am here to take care of you. This isn't just a meditation technique. It's a way of making peace with your own experience. You can do the same with fear, with sadness, with anxiety. Instead of seeing these feelings as problems to be solved or emotions to be avoided, you can recognize them as parts of yourself that need attention. Like a wounded child who has been waiting for someone to notice their pain, these feelings just need to be acknowledged, held with tenderness. There's a wounded child in each of us. You can recognize her, recognize him, and you can embrace this part of yourself tenderly, the way you would comfort any child who was hurting. This is the act of going home and taking care of home. Every time you take a breath, whether you're breathing in or breathing out, you have the opportunity to go back to yourself. Every step you take can bring you home to the here and now, so you can connect with yourself, with your body, with your feelings. This is real connection. You don't need technology for this. You don't need anyone else's permission or participation. You don't need to wait for the right circumstances or the perfect moment. Right now, as you're listening to this, you can place one hand on your chest and feel your heart beating. You can take one conscious breath and connect with the simple fact that you're alive. This is revolutionary. In a world that profits from your distraction, from your disconnection from yourself, simply being present is an act of rebellion. You're refusing to participate in the system that keeps you seeking outside yourself for what you already possess within. But here's what makes this teaching so relevant to our crisis of connection. There's an illusion of connection that technology provides. You think that with all these devices, all these apps, all these ways to reach other people, you can truly connect. But you cannot really connect. How can you connect with another person when you cannot connect with yourself? This is the question that cuts through all our modern confusion about relationships and loneliness. If you're not at home with yourself, if you don't know your own heart, if you can't sit peacefully with your own thoughts and feelings, how can you possibly offer genuine intimacy to someone else? The teaching of the Buddha about going home to the island of self is the way to heal not just our individual loneliness, but our collective disconnection. It starts with the revolutionary act of turning inward. The way out is in. When you take a step, you go into yourself, because that step brings you home to the here and now. It helps you connect with your body. Your body is your breath, your feet, your lungs, your heart. When you're connected to your body, you're connecting with an essential part of your home. Think about how often you completely forget you have a body. When you spend 2 hours staring at a computer screen, you might forget entirely that you exist as a physical being. Without your body, how can you be alive? Yet we regularly live as if we're just floating heads, just thinking minds, disconnected from the physical reality of our existence. Many people have started programming a bell of mindfulness into their computers. Every 15 minutes, they hear a gentle sound that reminds them to stop working, stop thinking, and return to their breath. For just a moment, they enjoy breathing in, they connect with themselves, they smile, they become alive again. They remember that they have a body, which is a wonder. Your body is indeed a wonder, and connection is, first of all, connection with your body. Then there are your feelings, whether sadness or anger or loneliness. These feelings are you. You connect with them through your mindful breathing. You smile to your feelings and say, "Don't worry, I'm home. I will take care of you." You embrace your feelings with tenderness, whether they're fear or anger or loneliness. This is what it means to be a home for yourself. The Buddha said, "Be an island unto yourself." Taking refuge in the island of yourself, this is the practice he recommended. But this doesn't mean isolation. It means becoming so grounded in your own presence that you're no longer desperately seeking completion from others. When you walk from the parking lot to your office, why don't you go home with every step? Why continue to think, to worry, to suffer when every step can bring you home? You can walk like a Buddha, act like a free person. This is possible. You can recover yourself. You can connect with yourself with every step. Every step brings you freedom when you're present to it. And here's the beautiful truth about this practice. Once you find a home for yourself, you can help your partner find theirs. Because your partner is also lonely. They're also looking for a home, for warmth, for safety. But now that you have a home within yourself, you can go to them from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. Since you have a home, you're in a position to help them find their home too. You're confident because you know how to connect with yourself, how to create a sense of home within yourself. That confidence, that groundedness, will inspire them to do the same. They can find a home in you because you've found a home in yourself. They can lean on your stability while they build their own inner sanctuary. But before you can help anyone else, you must help yourself. You must connect with yourself. Without this first step, The second step of genuinely connecting with others is not possible. This is what the Buddha discovered under the tree, and what Thich Nhat Hanh has spent his life teaching our modern world. We don't really need an iPhone or any device to connect with another person. What we need are eyes that can look with compassion. Even if the other person is not in the same town, you can connect easily because you are already yourself. You are already home. Whatever you say, whatever you think from this grounded place will help them recover themselves. And when they become able to go back to themselves, your relationship becomes a real relationship. Because both of you have found home within yourselves. When you come together from this place, you find home in each other at the same time as you find it in yourselves. This creates what Thich Nhat Hanh calls a collective home. There's a home here in you, a home here in them, and a home that exists in the space between you. This collective home becomes the foundation for everything else. If you want to help society, if you want to help your community, if you want to make a difference in the world, you have to start here, with yourself, with coming home to your own presence. When you have a true home within yourself, you have happiness, you have safety, you have fulfillment. And then you're in a condition to go to others, whether they're individuals, groups, or society as a whole. This is the way prescribed by the Buddha. Everything begins with yourself. The teaching is very clear. Every breath, every step, every moment of sitting, every act, like drinking tea or cleaning your home, when done in mindfulness, helps you to go home and to enjoy the wonders of life around you and within you. Your body is a wonder. The natural world around you, the hills, the streams, the sky, these are all wonders. They have the power to heal when you're present enough to receive them. But first, you must come home to yourself. But here's the tender part that makes this practice so healing for our modern loneliness. When you first sit down and turn your attention inward, you might meet the parts of yourself that have been waiting for your love for a very long time. When you first sit down and begin to pay attention to what's actually happening inside you, you might be surprised by what you discover. After spending so much time focused outward, on other people's lives through social media, on external problems and achievements, on the endless stream of information demanding your attention, turning inward can feel like entering a room you haven't visited in a very long time. What you find there might not be what you expected. Instead of peace or emptiness or spiritual bliss, you might encounter something much more human, much more tender. You might meet the parts of yourself that have been waiting patiently for your attention. This is where the Buddha's teaching becomes deeply practical and beautifully healing. He taught us not just to be aware of our breathing, but to become aware of our feelings. Your feelings of loneliness, of sadness, of fear, of anxiety. And instead of trying to push these feelings away, or fix them or distract yourself from them, he offered a revolutionary approach. Smile to them. Imagine greeting your difficult emotions the way you would greet an old friend who has traveled a long distance to see you, with recognition, with warmth, with a genuine welcoming presence. I'm aware of my feeling of loneliness, you might say silently to yourself. I'm aware of my sadness, my fear, my anxiety. And then, remarkably, I smile to these feelings. This isn't about putting on a fake smile or pretending to be happy when you're not. It's about offering the same kind of gentle, accepting presence to your difficult emotions that you would offer to a child who came to you crying. You wouldn't tell the child to stop crying or that their feelings were wrong. You would simply be present with them, acknowledging their pain with tenderness. The Buddha taught us to say to our feelings, "My dear loneliness, I know you are there. I am here to take care of you." These aren't just pretty words. They represent a complete transformation in how we relate to our inner experience. Think about how radical this is. In a culture that constantly tells us to be positive, to think happy thoughts, to overcome our negative emotions, here's an ancient teaching that says, welcome them in. Make space for them. Treat them like honored guests who have something important to tell you. You make peace with your loneliness. You make peace with your fear. Not by conquering them or transcending them, but by offering them the one thing they've been asking for all along, your loving attention. There's a wounded child in you. This isn't metaphorical or psychological jargon. It's a direct recognition of the part of yourself that carries the accumulation of all the times you felt unseen, unheard, misunderstood, or alone. You can recognize her. You can recognize him. And you can embrace this wounded child tenderly in your arms. This embrace isn't something you do once and then you're finished. It's the ongoing act of going home and taking care of home. Every time you return to mindful breathing, every time you pause and check in with yourself, you're offering this inner child the attention they've been seeking in all those external connections. When you first encounter this wounded part of yourself, you might be overwhelmed by how much pain is stored there, how much loneliness has accumulated over years of looking outside yourself for validation, for love, for the feeling of being truly known. This is perfectly normal. This is what happens when we've left home for a long time. Going home means accepting the situation as it is. Yes, it's a mess. Yes, there's accumulated sadness, fear, anxiety, loneliness. But you accept this because you recognize that you've been away for a long time. You've allowed things to happen like this at home, not because you're bad or wrong, but because you simply didn't know there was another way. Now you're home, and you can begin to rearrange everything. With your in-breath and your out-breath, with your mindful breathing, you begin to smile at everything you find inside yourself. You begin to tidy up your inner home, not through force or criticism, but through presence and acceptance. The Buddha told us exactly how to do this, how to breathe in and how to release the tension in our bodies. This isn't just about relaxation, it's about learning to be present with your physical experience in a way that naturally allows healing to occur. You allow your body to release the tension where everything has been written down. Your body holds the memory of every time you felt lonely in a crowd, every time you reached for your phone seeking connection but found only temporary distraction, every time you smiled on the outside while feeling empty on the inside. All of this is stored in your muscles, in your breathing patterns, in the way you hold yourself throughout the day. But your body also knows how to heal. When you offer it your mindful attention, when you breathe with awareness and allow your breath to flow naturally, your body begins to release what it no longer needs to hold. The tension starts to dissolve, not because you're forcing it to relax, but because you're finally providing the safety and presence your body needs to let go. This is why mindful breathing feels different from other relaxation techniques. You're not trying to achieve a particular state or force your body to behave in a certain way. You're simply offering your kind attention to whatever is actually happening right now. And in that attention, in that acceptance, natural healing begins to occur. Your breathing becomes like a gentle hand stroking the forehead of that wounded child within you. Each in-breath says, "I see you." Each out-breath says, "You're safe now." This isn't something you need to think or visualize. It happens naturally when you breathe with awareness and kindness. Sometimes, when you first begin to offer this kind of attention to your inner world, you might find that emotions rise to the surface more intensely than usual. You might feel like crying for no apparent reason, or feel waves of sadness or loneliness that seem to come from nowhere. This isn't a sign that something is wrong, it's a sign that something is finally right. These emotions aren't new. They've been there all along, beneath the constant activity and distraction. Now that you're finally present enough to feel them, they can begin to move through you and transform. Your tears, when they come, are just love, with nowhere to go, finally finding a way to flow. Think about how we usually respond to difficult emotions. We reach for our phones, turn on the TV, call someone, eat something, buy something, anything, to avoid feeling what we're actually feeling. We've learned to treat our emotions like emergencies that need to be fixed immediately, rather than natural movements of our inner life that simply need to be witnessed. But what if your sadness doesn't need to be fixed? What if your loneliness isn't a problem to be solved, but a part of you that needs to be heard? What if your anxiety is actually your inner wisdom trying to tell you something important about how you've been living? When you sit quietly and allow yourself to feel whatever is present without immediately trying to change it, you discover that emotions are much more fluid and temporary than you thought. They rise like waves, and when met with presence rather than resistance, they naturally subside. But they can only complete this natural cycle when they're not being pushed away or suppressed. The practice of speaking to your emotions like beloved friends transforms your relationship with your inner life completely. Instead of being afraid of what you might find inside yourself, you become curious. Instead of treating your difficult emotions like enemies to be defeated, you treat them like messengers carrying important information. "Hello, my dear loneliness," you might say silently when you feel that familiar ache arising. "I see you there. I know you've been waiting for my attention. I'm here now. Tell me what you need." You might be surprised by what your loneliness has to say when you finally give it a chance to speak. It might tell you that it's tired of all the surface-level connections and is actually longing for deeper intimacy, starting with intimacy with yourself. It might reveal that it's not asking you to find more people to connect with, but to connect more deeply with the people already in your life. Or it might simply want to be held for a while, acknowledged for the difficult job it's been doing trying to get your attention. Your anxiety might have something equally important to share. It might be trying to tell you that you've been moving too fast, trying to do too much, living in a way that doesn't honor your natural rhythms and needs. It might be pointing out that you've been so focused on pleasing others that you've lost touch with what actually brings you joy and peace. Your sadness might be grieving all the moments you've missed while distracted by your devices, all the opportunities for real connection you've passed by while seeking connection online. Or it might be mourning the loss of the simpler life you once knew, before constant connectivity became the norm. This grief is natural and healthy. It shows that you still remember what genuine presence and connection feel like. The wounded child within you has been carrying all of this for a very long time. All the accumulated moments of feeling unseen in a world that seems to notice everything except what really matters. All the times you felt lonely despite being surrounded by ways to connect. All the experiences of reaching out for authentic relationship but finding only digital facsimiles. This child doesn't need you to fix their pain or make it go away. They just need you to acknowledge that it's real, that their feelings make sense, that they're not asking for too much when they want to feel truly known and loved. They need you to sit with them for a while without trying to cheer them up or talk them out of what they're feeling. When you embrace this wounded child tenderly in your arms, you're not being dramatic or self-indulgent. You're offering yourself the same compassion you would naturally offer to any child who was hurting. You're providing the loving presence that this part of you has been seeking in all those external connections that never quite satisfied. This is the act of going home and taking care of home. Not the home where your mail is delivered, but the home of your own heart, your own inner life, your own precious existence. You've been away for so long, focused on everyone else's lives, everyone else's needs, everyone else's approval. Now, you're finally here for yourself. Every time you take a breath, whether you're breathing in or breathing out, you have the opportunity to go back to yourself, to check in with that child within you and ask, how are you doing right now? What do you need from me? How can I take better care of you? Every step you take, if done mindfully, brings you home to the here and now so that you can connect with yourself, with your body, with your feelings. This is real connection, not the kind mediated by technology, but the direct, immediate connection between your awareness and your lived experience. You don't need a lot of technology to develop this connection. You don't need apps or devices or complicated techniques. You just need your own kind attention, your own willingness to be present with whatever you're experiencing, without immediately trying to change it or escape from it. This is the revolution that Thich Nhat Hanh speaks of. In a world that profits from your dissatisfaction, from your constant seeking outside yourself, simply being present with your own experience is a radical act. You're refusing to participate in the economy of endless distraction and consumption. You're choosing depth over surface, being over doing, presence over productivity. When you first begin this practice, you might notice how much resistance you encounter, not from the practice itself, but from the habits of mind that have kept you seeking externally for so long. Your mind might immediately start making lists of things you should be doing instead of sitting quietly. You might feel guilty for taking time to simply be with yourself. You might feel like you're being selfish or unproductive. These thoughts are completely normal. They're the voice of a culture that has taught you that your worth comes from what you do, rather than who you are, from how much you accomplish, rather than how present you can be. But you can smile to these thoughts too, recognizing them as old habits that don't serve you anymore. The practice of mindful breathing naturally teaches you patience with yourself. When your mind wanders, and it will, constantly, you don't judge yourself or think you're doing something wrong. You simply notice that your attention has drifted and gently bring it back to your breath. This returning is the practice. This gentle redirection is how you learn to be kind to yourself. Each time you notice your mind has wandered and bring your attention back to your breathing, you're strengthening your ability to come home to yourself. You're developing what might be called emotional muscles, the capacity to be present with whatever arises without being overwhelmed by it. You're learning that you can feel difficult emotions without being destroyed by them. Your breath becomes your teacher in this process of emotional healing. It shows you how to be present without forcing, how to be gentle without being passive, how to allow without being indifferent. Every breath demonstrates acceptance, accepting this moment, this feeling, this experience, exactly as it is right now. And in that acceptance, something beautiful happens. The emotions you've been running from, the feelings you've been trying to fix or escape, begin to relax when they're finally met with presence rather than resistance. They soften under the warmth of your attention, like ice melting in sunlight. Your loneliness, when touched by your own compassionate presence, begins to reveal its hidden nature. It's not actually emptiness, it's spaciousness. It's not isolation, it's freedom. It's not something missing, it's something complete, waiting to be recognized. The very feeling that drove you to seek connection everywhere outside yourself transforms into a doorway leading you home. This transformation doesn't happen because you forced it or manipulated it in any way. It happens naturally when difficult emotions are finally met with the loving attention they've been asking for all along. It's like a child who stops crying not because they've been distracted or bribed, but because someone has finally stopped to listen to what they were trying to say. The mess you find inside yourself when you first turn inward isn't evidence that you're broken or behind or doing life wrong. It's simply what accumulates when we live disconnected from our own inner world for extended periods. Just as a house gets dusty when no one's been taking care of it, our inner life gets cluttered when we've been focused exclusively outward. But houses can be cleaned, and inner worlds can be tended, with patience, with kindness, with the simple practice of showing up regularly to see what needs attention. You don't have to fix everything at once, or become perfectly peaceful overnight. You just have to be willing to be present with yourself as you are right now. This presence, this simple willingness to be here with yourself, without demanding that you be different, is perhaps the most healing force available to human beings. It's what that wounded child within you has been waiting for all along. Not someone else's presence, but your own. Not external validation, but internal recognition. Not rescue from their feelings, but companionship with them. When you offer this gift to yourself, the gift of your own loving attention, you discover that you've been carrying the solution to your loneliness with you everywhere you go. You've never been without it. You've only forgotten where to look. And something magical happens when you begin to consistently offer this kind of presence to your own inner world. The healing doesn't stay contained within you. It begins to radiate outward, touching every relationship in your life, every interaction you have, every connection you make. There's a profound shift that happens when you begin to consistently offer loving attention to your own inner world. Something changes in the very quality of your presence, in the way you move through the world, in how you relate to every person you encounter. You discover a secret that the Buddha understood deeply. The quality of your connections with others can only be as deep as your connection with yourself. This isn't just spiritual philosophy, it's practical wisdom that you can test in your own experience. Think about the last time you were with someone while feeling anxious, distracted, or emotionally empty inside. How present were you able to be with them? How much genuine attention could you offer when your own inner world was calling for care? How deeply could you listen when you were desperately hoping they would say something to make you feel better about yourself? Now imagine being with that same person from a place of inner fullness. When you've taken time to come home to yourself, to acknowledge your own feelings with kindness, to breathe mindfully and settle into your own presence. Suddenly, you have something to give rather than something to get. You can listen without agenda, love without neediness, be present without performing. This is the beautiful truth that transforms everything about how we understand relationships and connection. You can only love others as much as you love yourself. Not because you're being selfish, but because love isn't something you extract from others. It's something you become and then naturally share. When you haven't learned to be at home with yourself, every relationship becomes a form of seeking. You might not be conscious of it, but you're constantly looking for the other person to validate you, to make you feel worthy, to fill the emptiness you feel inside. You're not really seeing them, you're seeing what you hope they can do for you. This creates an exhausting dynamic for everyone involved. The other person feels the pressure of being responsible for your emotional well-being. They sense that you need something from them, even if they can't name what it is. And you end up disappointed when they inevitably fail to provide what you can only provide for yourself. But something extraordinary happens when you stop expecting other people to complete you. When you've done the inner work of coming home to yourself, of learning to sit peacefully with your own thoughts and feelings, of becoming your own source of comfort and validation, then your relationships become gifts rather than necessities. You begin to see people as they actually are, rather than as you need them to be. Your eyes, as the Buddha taught, become eyes that see with compassion rather than eyes that are desperately seeking something. This shift in perception changes everything about how you connect with others. When you look at someone with eyes that need something, their approval, their attention, their love, there's a quality of grasping in your gaze. The other person can feel this, even if they can't articulate it. They sense that you're not really interested in who they are, but in what they can provide for you. It makes them want to protect themselves, to hold back, to keep their distance. But when you look at someone with eyes that see with compassion, when you're already full and grounded and at home within yourself, something completely different happens. Your gaze becomes a gift rather than a demand. The other person feels seen and appreciated for who they are, rather than judged by what they can offer you. They feel safe to be themselves, because they sense that you're not trying to change them or get something from them. This is what the Buddha meant when he taught about right relationship, not relationships based on mutual neediness or the exchange of emotional services, but connections that arise naturally when two people who have found their own inner home choose to share that home with each other. The confidence that comes from having established this inner sanctuary is unlike anything that external achievements can provide. It's not the brittle confidence that depends on being better than others or having more than others. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can be okay, no matter what happens around you. Because you've learned to come home to yourself. This confidence is deeply attractive to others, but not in a way that feeds the ego. People are naturally drawn to those who are genuinely at peace with themselves, because such people offer something rare, a non-demanding presence. They don't need you to be different than you are in order for them to feel okay about themselves. In their presence, you can relax and simply be. When you have found a home for yourself, you become capable of helping others find theirs, not by trying to fix them or save them or tell them what to do, but simply by being an example of what it looks like to be at peace with your own existence. Your groundedness becomes an invitation for others to find their own ground. The Buddha taught that we are all interconnected, that our individual healing contributes to the healing of everyone around us. This isn't just a beautiful metaphor, it's something you can observe directly in your relationships. When you're anxious and scattered, the people around you tend to become anxious and scattered. When you're peaceful and present, that peace naturally spreads to others. Your partner, your friends, your family members, they're all seeking the same thing you are. They want to feel at home in their own lives, safe in their own skin, worthy of love and belonging. But most people don't know how to provide this for themselves, so they look to others to provide it for them. When you've learned to be a home for yourself, you can go to your partner from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. Since you have a home within yourself, you're in a position to help them find their home too. You're confident because you know how to connect with yourself, how to create inner peace and stability. That confidence, that groundedness, naturally inspires others to develop the same capacity. They can find temporary refuge in your stability while they learn to build their own. But this is very different from becoming dependent on you for their emotional well-being. When you're truly grounded in yourself, you naturally encourage others to find their own ground rather than leaning on yours indefinitely. This is how real love works. It's not about finding someone to complete you, but about becoming complete enough within yourself that you can love without attachment, give without resentment, be present without agenda. Love isn't what you get from others, it's what you become and then naturally express. Before you can genuinely help anyone else, you have to help yourself. You have to connect with yourself first. Without this foundation, without this inner home, your attempts to love and support others will be tainted by your own unmet needs. You'll unconsciously be seeking from them what you haven't learned to provide for yourself. But when you have established this connection with yourself, when you've learned to come home to your own presence, then the next step becomes not just possible, but natural. You can connect with others from a place of genuine abundance rather than hidden neediness. You have something real to offer because you've found something real within yourself. You don't really need technology to create this kind of deep connection with another person. What you need are eyes that can look with compassion, a heart that has learned to be at peace with itself, a presence that is grounded and available. Even if the other person is on the other side of the world, you can connect with them deeply because you are already yourself. You are already home. When you speak or write or even think about someone from this grounded place, whatever you express will help them recover themselves. Not because you're trying to heal them or teach them, but because genuine presence is naturally healing. When someone feels truly seen and accepted as they are, they naturally begin to relax into their own authentic self. And when they become able to return to themselves, to find their own inner home, then your relationship becomes something entirely new. Instead of two people trying to get something from each other, you become two people who each have their own inner sanctuary and choose to share the abundance that flows from that grounding. This creates what Thich Nhat Hanh calls a collective home. There's your home, your individual connection to your own presence, your own breath, your own peaceful center. There's their home, their own relationship with themselves, their own capacity for inner peace and self-acceptance. And then there's the home you create together, the sacred space that emerges when two grounded people come together, without neediness, without agenda, simply to share the fullness of who they are. This collective home becomes the foundation for everything else in the relationship. Decisions are made from wisdom rather than fear. Conflicts are approached with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Each person can be fully themselves because they don't need the other person to be different in order to feel okay. They can love each other's humanity, including the difficult parts, because they've learned to love their own. This kind of relationship becomes a source of healing not just for the two people involved, but for everyone who witnesses it. Others can see what's possible when love flows from fullness rather than emptiness, when connection arises from strength rather than neediness. It becomes a living example of what human relationships can be when they're grounded in something deeper than mutual dependence. The ripple effects of this transformation extend far beyond your immediate relationships. When you interact with strangers, the barista at your coffee shop, the person sitting next to you on the bus, the colleague you barely know, they feel something different in your presence. They sense that you're not trying to get anything from them, not judging them, not needing them to perform or impress you. In that space of non-demanding presence, they can relax and simply be themselves. This is how individual healing becomes collective healing. Each person who learns to come home to themselves becomes a source of healing in the world, simply by being genuinely present and accepting with others. You don't have to try to save the world or fix society. You just have to become someone who has found peace within themselves and naturally shares that peace with everyone you encounter. The Buddha understood that this is how real change happens, not through force or manipulation or trying to control others, but through the quiet influence of people who have found their inner home and live from that groundedness. Their very presence becomes an invitation for others to remember their own capacity for peace and wholeness. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent to suffering in the world. In fact, the opposite happens. When you're no longer driven by your own unmet needs, you become much more available to respond skillfully to the needs of others. Your actions arise from wisdom and compassion, rather than from anxiety and the desire to be seen as good or helpful. You can engage with the difficulties in your relationships, your community, your world from a place of stability rather than reactivity. You can offer support without taking on others' problems as your own. You can be present with pain, yours and others, without being overwhelmed by it. You become someone who can sit with difficulty without immediately trying to fix it or run away from it. This capacity to be present with what is, without needing it to be different, is perhaps the greatest gift you can offer to another human being. In a world where everyone is constantly trying to change each other, to improve each other, to solve each other's problems, simply being present without agenda becomes profoundly healing. When someone is struggling and you can sit with them without trying to talk them out of their feelings or cheer them up or offer solutions, they feel truly met. They experience the rare gift of being seen and accepted exactly as they are in that moment. This acceptance doesn't enable their suffering. It creates the safety they need to process their emotions naturally and find their own way forward. The loneliness that once drove you to seek constantly outside yourself transforms into something entirely different. Instead of emptiness seeking to be filled, it becomes spaciousness, available to hold whatever arises. Instead of neediness reaching for others, it becomes fullness naturally overflowing. You discover that you were never actually lacking anything. You were simply disconnected from the abundance that was always available within you. This is the secret to never feeling lonely again, even when you're alone. It's not that you stop having difficult emotions or challenging experiences. It's that you learn to be good company for yourself. You become someone you genuinely enjoy spending time with. Your own presence becomes a source of comfort and stability, rather than something to escape from. When you reach this place of genuine self-acceptance and inner peace, solitude becomes a gift rather than a punishment. You can sit quietly with yourself without immediately reaching for distractions. You can take walks alone and actually enjoy your own company. You can go to movies by yourself, eat meals alone, travel solo, not as acts of defiance or independence, but simply because you genuinely like being with yourself. This doesn't mean you become antisocial or no longer value connection with others. In fact, the opposite happens. Because you're no longer desperately seeking from others what you can provide for yourself, your relationships become more authentic, more relaxed, more joyful. You can enjoy people's company without needing them to fill any emptiness in you. You can love them without trying to control them or change them. And when you do choose to be alone, that solitude becomes a time of communion with yourself, rather than isolation from others. You're not alone in the sense of being cut off or abandoned. You're alone in the sense of being whole and complete unto yourself. It's the difference between loneliness and solitude, between emptiness and fullness, between seeking and being. This transformation affects every aspect of your life. Your work becomes more creative and authentic because you're no longer performing for approval. Your friendships deepen because you can be genuinely interested in others rather than focused on what they think of you. Your family relationships heal because you stop trying to get from them what they were never meant to provide. Even your relationship with strangers becomes more warm and open because you're not seeing them through the lens of your unmet needs. Love, you discover, isn't what you get from others. It's what you become when you learn to be at home with yourself. And once you become love, once you embody the peace and acceptance and compassion that you've cultivated in your relationship with yourself, that love naturally flows to everyone in your life without effort or intention. This is the Buddha's teaching, made practical for our modern lives. This is how ancient wisdom transforms contemporary loneliness. Not by trying to connect more, but by learning to connect authentically. Not by seeking love everywhere, but by becoming love and then sharing it freely. And when two people who have each found this inner home come together, something beautiful happens that transcends anything either could create alone. They discover that love multiplied is infinitely greater than love divided, and that true intimacy is only possible between two people who are already complete. There's a practice so simple, so available, so integrated into your daily life that you might overlook it entirely. Yet, it has the power to transform every moment of movement into a homecoming, every journey into a meditation, every ordinary day into a sacred experience. The Buddha taught that every time you make a step, whether you are breathing in or breathing out, you can go back to yourself. Every step brings you home to the here and now, so that you can connect with yourself, your body, your feelings. This isn't a special practice you need to set aside time for or learn complicated techniques to master. It's something you can begin right now, wherever you are, with whatever step you take next. Think about how many steps you take in a typical day, from your bed to the bathroom in the morning, from your car to your office, through the grocery store, around your home, up and down stairs. Thousands of opportunities to come home to yourself, and most of the time, you're mentally somewhere else entirely. When you walk from the parking lot to your office, the Buddha asks, why don't you go home with every step? Why continue to think, to worry, to suffer, when every step can bring you home? You can walk like a Buddha, act like a free person. This is not only possible, it's your birthright. Imagine transforming your daily commute from a time of stress and mental chatter into a journey of return to yourself. Instead of spending those minutes lost in worry about the day ahead or replaying yesterday's conversations, you could use that time to reconnect with your own presence, your own aliveness, your own capacity for peace. The practice is beautiful in its simplicity. As you walk, you simply pay attention to the fact that you are walking. You feel your feet making contact with the ground. You notice the rhythm of your steps, the movement of your legs, the gentle swaying of your body as you move through space. You coordinate your breathing with your walking, allowing each step to bring you more fully into the present moment. You're not trying to walk differently or achieve any particular state. You're simply becoming aware of what you're already doing. Walking mindfully means walking with awareness, with presence, with the recognition that this simple act of moving through the world is actually quite miraculous. Your body knows how to walk. It learned this complex coordination of muscles and balance and forward momentum when you were very young, and now it performs this miracle automatically, without your conscious direction. When you walk mindfully, you're appreciating this gift, acknowledging the wisdom and capability of your physical form. Every step says, I am here. I am home. Not home in the sense of a particular location, but home in the sense of being fully present to your own life, fully inhabiting your own experience. Each footfall becomes an affirmation of your existence, your aliveness, your precious opportunity to be conscious in this moment. When you first begin walking this way, you might be surprised by how quickly your mind wants to drift away from the simple experience of walking. This is completely normal. Your mind has been trained to be everywhere except where you actually are. But each time you notice your attention has wandered and gently bring it back to your steps, you're strengthening your capacity to be present with your life as it's actually happening. The beauty of walking meditation is that it integrates seamlessly into your existing routine. You don't need to find extra time in your schedule or create special conditions. Every time you move from one place to another, you have an opportunity to practice coming home to yourself. The walk from your car to the store, from your desk to the bathroom, from the kitchen to the bedroom, all of these become invitations to presence. You can practice this while walking in nature, and the natural world will support your return to yourself. The trees, the sky, the earth beneath your feet, these are all expressions of the same life force that animates your own body. Walking mindfully in nature can feel like a conversation between your awareness and the awareness that permeates everything around you. But you can also practice walking meditation in the most urban environments. Walking through a busy city, surrounded by traffic and crowds and noise, can become an opportunity to find inner stillness amidst outer chaos. Your mindful steps become an anchor of peace in a world of constant movement and stimulation. The rhythm of walking naturally supports the rhythm of breathing. You might find that you naturally breathe in for 2 or 3 steps, then breathe out for the same number of steps. This coordination between movement and breath creates a natural meditation, a moving prayer, a walking practice of returning to life. You recover yourself with every step. You are no longer losing yourself in mental projections about the future or regrets about the past. You connect with your body. You connect with your feelings with every step. And every step brings you freedom. Freedom from the mental prison of constant thinking. Freedom from the anxiety of always being somewhere other than where you are. This practice transforms your relationship with your body in profound ways. Most of the time, we treat our bodies as vehicles for getting our heads from one place to another. We ignore physical sensations unless they become uncomfortable enough to demand attention. We spend hours focused on screens, completely disconnected from the physical reality of our existence. Your body is your oldest, wisest friend. It has been with you since the moment you were born, faithfully supporting your life, automatically managing thousands of complex processes that keep you alive and healthy. It has carried you through every experience you've ever had, held every emotion you've ever felt, been the vessel for every moment of joy and sorrow in your life. When you spend 2 hours working on your computer, Thich Nhat Hanh observes, you might forget entirely that you have a body. Without your body, how can you be alive? Yet, this disconnection from our physical existence has become so normal that we barely notice it anymore. This is why many people have begun programming a bell of mindfulness into their computers. Every 15 minutes, they hear a gentle chime that reminds them to stop working, stop thinking, and return to their breath. For just a moment, they enjoy breathing in. They connect with themselves. They smile. They become alive again. They remember that they have a body, which is a wonder. Your body is indeed a wonder. Right now, as you listen to these words, your heart is beating approximately 70 times per minute, pumping blood to every cell in your body. Your lungs are exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide, supporting the life of every organ and tissue. Your digestive system is processing nutrients. Your immune system is protecting you from illness. Your nervous system is coordinating millions of signals that allow you to think and feel and perceive. All of this is happening without any conscious effort on your part. When you walk mindfully, you're honoring this miraculous physical existence that makes all your experiences possible. You're acknowledging the gift of mobility, of balance, of the complex coordination that allows you to move through the world. Each step becomes an expression of gratitude for the body that carries you through life. Connection is, first of all, connection with your body. When you're disconnected from your physical existence, living primarily in your thoughts and mental constructions, how can you possibly connect authentically with others? They can sense that you're not really present, not really inhabiting your own life. But when you're grounded in your physical presence, when you're aware of your breath and your posture and the sensation of your feet on the earth, others feel your groundedness. Walking meditation teaches you to be present with whatever arises in your body. Sometimes, you might notice tension in your shoulders or tightness in your chest. Sometimes you might feel energized and light, other times heavy and sluggish. The practice isn't about feeling a particular way, but about being aware of however you're feeling without judgment. This awareness naturally leads to healing. When you're present with physical sensations, your body can release tension that it's been holding unnecessarily. When you breathe mindfully while walking, you're providing your nervous system with the oxygen and rhythm it needs to function optimally. When you move with awareness, you're naturally improving your posture, your balance, your overall physical well-being. But the benefits extend far beyond the physical. Walking meditation is a practice of integration, bringing together body and mind, movement and stillness, inner awareness and outer experience. It teaches you that meditation isn't something you only do while sitting quietly, but a quality of awareness you can bring to any activity. Every step becomes an opportunity to practice what the Buddha called right mindfulness, being aware of what you're doing while you're doing it. This sounds simple, but it's actually quite revolutionary in a world that rewards multitasking and constant mental activity. To do one thing at a time, with full attention, is to rebel against the culture of distraction that dominates modern life. When you walk mindfully to your office, you're not preparing for your workday or reviewing your to-do list. You're simply walking. When you walk mindfully to the store, you're not planning what you'll buy or thinking about other errands. You're simply walking. This quality of undivided attention transforms the most ordinary activities into practices of presence. The gentle revolution of simply being where you are cannot be overstated. In a world that constantly encourages you to be somewhere else mentally, planning the future, reliving the past, escaping into digital realities, the simple act of being fully present to your current experience is profoundly countercultural. You don't need to travel to exotic locations or have peak experiences to access the sacred. The sacred is available in every step you take down the hallway of your own home. The divine is present in the simple act of walking from your car to the grocery store. Every moment offers you the opportunity to wake up to the miracle of your own existence. This practice naturally extends beyond walking to all forms of movement and physical activity. You can bring the same quality of mindful attention to washing dishes, folding laundry, driving your car, exercising at the gym. Any activity that involves your body can become a meditation, a practice of returning to presence, a way of coming home to yourself. When you're washing dishes mindfully, you feel the warm water on your hands, notice the texture of the soap, appreciate the simple rhythm of cleaning and rinsing. You're not rushing through the task to get to something more important. You recognize that this moment, this activity, is your life happening right now. The dishes become your teachers, showing you how to be fully present to whatever you're doing. The same awareness can transform your daily hygiene routine into a practice of self-care and presence. Brushing your teeth becomes an opportunity to appreciate your body and take care of it mindfully. Showering becomes a meditation on cleansing and renewal. Getting dressed becomes a moment to appreciate the body that carries you through life and the clothes that provide warmth and protection. Even mundane activities like waiting in line or sitting in traffic can become opportunities to practice presence. Instead of feeling frustrated by these delays, you can use them as reminders to return to your breath, to notice your body, to appreciate the simple fact that you're alive in this moment. What seemed like interruptions to your day become invitations to wake up to your life. The 15-minute bell practice that Thich Nhat Hanh describes can be adapted to any form of reminder that works for your lifestyle. You might set gentle alarms on your phone or use natural cues like every time you hear a bird singing or see a red car. The specific trigger doesn't matter. What matters is creating regular opportunities throughout your day to stop, breathe, and return to presence. Each time you respond to these reminders, you strengthen what might be called your presence muscle. Just as physical exercise gradually builds strength and endurance, regularly returning to mindful awareness gradually builds your capacity to remain present even in challenging circumstances. You become someone who can stay grounded in the midst of chaos, centered in the face of difficulty, peaceful, regardless of external conditions. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent to what's happening around you. In fact, the opposite occurs. When you're truly present, you become much more responsive to what each situation actually requires. You act from wisdom rather than reactivity, from clarity rather than confusion, from love rather than fear. Walking meditation specifically teaches you that you can be peaceful while in motion, centered while actively engaged with the world. This is crucial for modern life, where most of us spend very little time sitting still, but many hours moving from one activity to another. If you can only find peace when you're sitting quietly, then peace becomes a rare and precious commodity, available only under special circumstances. But when you learn to walk as a meditation, to move through your day as a practice of presence, then peace becomes as available as your next step. You carry your sanctuary with you wherever you go. You don't need to wait for the right conditions or the perfect moment. You can come home to yourself with your very next breath, your very next step. This transforms your entire relationship with time and space. Instead of seeing your day as a series of tasks to complete or places to get to, you begin to see it as a series of opportunities to be present, to connect with yourself, to appreciate the gift of being alive. The journey becomes as important as the destination. Actually, the journey becomes the destination. You discover that you don't need to get anywhere or accomplish anything in order to be happy and peaceful. Happiness and peace are available right now, in this step, in this breath, in this moment of simply being present to your own existence. This realization is profoundly liberating because it means you can stop postponing your life, stop waiting for the right circumstances to be content. Every step declares your intention to be present to your life as it's actually happening, rather than lost in mental stories about how it should be different. Every step is a small rebellion against the forces that profit from your distraction and dissatisfaction. Every step is a choice to inhabit your own existence fully, rather than living as a visitor in your own life. And here's where the magic spreads beyond your individual experience and begins to touch everyone around you. When you move through the world with this quality of presence, this groundedness in your own being, others feel it immediately. Your peaceful steps create ripples of peace that extend far beyond what you might imagine possible. There's something extraordinary that happens when you consistently practice coming home to yourself. It doesn't stay contained within the boundaries of your individual experience. Like a stone dropped into still water, the peace you cultivate within yourself creates ripples that extend far beyond what you might imagine possible. Your inner transformation becomes a gift to everyone who encounters you, often in ways so subtle they might not even notice consciously. The Buddha understood this principle deeply. He taught that individual awakening is never just individual. It naturally contributes to the awakening of all beings. This isn't just spiritual poetry. It's something you can observe directly in your daily relationships and interactions. When you're anxious and scattered, the people around you tend to become anxious and scattered. When you're rushed and impatient, others feel pressured to hurry. When you're lost in worry about the future or regret about the past, the people you're with feel your absence even when you're physically present. Your inner state broadcasts itself constantly, influencing the emotional atmosphere of every space you enter. But the opposite is equally true and far more powerful. When you're genuinely at peace with yourself, when you've learned to be comfortable in your own presence, when you carry that inner sanctuary with you wherever you go, others feel this immediately. Your groundedness becomes an invitation for them to find their own ground. Your peace gives them permission to relax, to breathe, to simply be themselves without performance or pretense. This happens not because you're trying to influence anyone or fix anyone or teach anyone anything. It happens naturally, the way a warm fire radiates heat to everyone nearby without effort or intention. When you've found your inner home, you become a sanctuary for others, not because you're taking responsibility for their emotional state, but because your presence demonstrates that peace is possible. Think about the people in your life who have this quality. There are probably one or two individuals who, when you're with them, you feel more relaxed, more yourself, more at ease than usual. They're not necessarily the most entertaining or impressive people you know, but there's something about their presence that feels safe, accepting, genuine. They don't need you to be different than you are in order for them to feel comfortable. In their company, you can let your guard down because you sense that they're not judging you or trying to get something from you. These people have learned, consciously or unconsciously, to be at home with themselves. They've developed the capacity to be present without agenda, to listen without immediately trying to solve, to love without grasping. Their inner peace has become a gift they offer to everyone they encounter, simply by being who they are. You can become this kind of person, not by trying to be peaceful or working to project calmness, but by genuinely doing the inner work of coming home to yourself. When your peace is authentic rather than performed, others feel the difference immediately. The ripple effect begins most powerfully in your closest relationships. Your partner, your family members, your closest friends, these are the people who will feel the change in you most directly. As Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, once you find a home for yourself, you can help your partner find theirs. Your partner is also lonely. They're also looking for a home, for warmth, for safety, for the feeling of being truly known and accepted. But perhaps they, like most people, have been seeking this externally, looking to you, or to achievements, or to distractions, to provide what they can only provide for themselves. When you've established your own inner sanctuary, something fundamental changes in how you relate to your partner's seeking, their struggles, their emotional needs. Instead of feeling responsible for fixing their problems or making them happy, you can simply be present with them as they navigate their own journey home to themselves. You can offer the steady, non-anxious presence that allows them to feel safe enough to explore their own inner world. Since you have a home within yourself, you're in a position to help them find their home too, not by telling them what to do or trying to manage their emotional life, but by consistently demonstrating what it looks like to be grounded in your own being. You're confident because you know how to connect with yourself, how to find peace in the midst of difficulty, how to be okay, regardless of external circumstances. That confidence, which is really just the natural result of being at home with yourself, naturally inspires others to develop the same capacity. They see that it's possible to remain calm in situations that used to create anxiety. They witness someone choosing presence over reactivity, breath over worry, acceptance over resistance. Your example becomes more powerful than any advice you could give. They can find temporary refuge in your stability while they learn to build their own. This is very different from becoming dependent on you for their emotional well-being. When you're truly grounded in yourself, you naturally encourage others toward their own independence rather than creating codependency. You offer support without enabling, love without controlling, presence without absorbing their emotions as your own. This creates what Thich Nhat Hanh calls a collective home. There's your home, your individual relationship with your own presence, your own breath, your own capacity for inner peace. There's their home, their growing ability to find stability and comfort within themselves. And then there's the home you create together, the sacred space that emerges when two people who are each grounded in their own being choose to share their lives. This collective home becomes the foundation for everything else in your relationship. Conflicts become opportunities for deeper understanding rather than battles to be won. Differences become sources of richness rather than threats to be defended against. Each person can be fully themselves because they don't need the other to be different in order to feel secure. When you come together from this place of individual wholeness, you find home in each other at the same time as you maintain your own inner sanctuary. You're not trying to complete each other or fix each other or change each other. You're simply sharing the abundance that flows naturally from two people who have learned to be at peace with themselves. Love becomes an expression of fullness rather than an attempt to fill emptiness. This transformation in your closest relationships naturally extends to all your other connections. Your children, if you have them, feel the difference in your presence immediately. Instead of a parent who is anxious, rushed, distracted, constantly trying to manage their behavior and emotions, they encounter someone who is genuinely present and accepting. This gives them the safety they need to develop their own emotional regulation and self-awareness. Your friends notice that you've become someone who can listen without immediately offering solutions, who can be present with their difficulties without taking them on as your own. You're no longer performing friendship or trying to be helpful in ways that actually increase drama and dependence. You've become someone who offers the rare gift of non-judgmental presence. Even your professional relationships transform. Colleagues sense that you're not competing with them, or trying to prove anything, or seeking their approval for your sense of worth. You can collaborate without ego, lead without dominating, follow without resentment. Your work becomes more creative and effective because it's no longer filtered through the anxiety of trying to manage others' opinions of you. The people who serve you in stores and restaurants feel your genuine appreciation rather than the distracted politeness that most customers offer. You're actually present when you say thank you, actually seeing them as human beings rather than functionaries in your day. This simple presence can transform their experience of work, reminding them of their own dignity and worth. This is why the Buddha's teaching about individual transformation is so relevant to our collective crisis of connection and meaning. We often think that social change requires grand gestures, political movements, systemic overhauls. While these things may have their place, the Buddha understood that the most profound transformation happens when individuals take responsibility for their own inner life and, by extension, the quality of presence they bring to every interaction. If you want to help society, if you want to help your community, if you want to contribute to healing the world, you have to start with yourself. This isn't selfishness. It's the most generous thing you can do. When you have established a true home within yourself, when you have genuine happiness and safety and fulfillment that doesn't depend on external circumstances, then you're in a position to go to others from a place of abundance rather than neediness. Your peace becomes a love letter to the world. Every moment you choose presence over distraction, every time you respond with calmness instead of reactivity, every breath you take in mindful awareness, these become gifts to the collective human experience. You're demonstrating that peace is possible, that happiness doesn't require having everything go your way, that human beings can learn to be at home in their own existence. This is the way prescribed by the Buddha for healing our individual and collective suffering. Everything begins with yourself. Not because you're more important than others, but because you're the only person you can actually transform. You can't force others to find peace, but you can become so peaceful yourself that your very presence reminds them of their own capacity for tranquility. The ripples of this transformation extend in ways you may never fully know. Someone observes your patience in a difficult situation and remembers that they too can choose how to respond rather than simply react. A child witnesses your kindness to a stranger and learns that this is how humans can treat each other. A colleague notices your ability to remain calm under pressure and begins to question their own habits of stress and urgency. You become living proof that the alternatives to anxiety, anger, and disconnection are not just possible, but practical. In a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, your groundedness becomes an anchor point for others. Your consistent choice to return to presence, rather than getting lost in mental drama, shows others that they too have this choice available to them. This doesn't mean you become perfect or never experience difficult emotions or challenging situations. It means you've developed the capacity to remain connected to your inner sanctuary, even when life becomes turbulent. Others watch how you navigate difficulties with grace and presence, and they begin to believe that they too might be capable of this kind of resilience. The healing spreads not through preaching or teaching or trying to convince anyone of anything, but simply through authentic demonstration. You show rather than tell. You embody the possibility rather than talking about it. Your life becomes a gentle invitation for others to remember their own capacity for peace and happiness. In our hyper-connected but emotionally disconnected world, this kind of authentic presence is desperately needed. People are hungry for real connection, for genuine peace, for the experience of being truly seen and accepted. When you offer this through your own grounded presence, you're providing something more valuable than any advice or assistance you could give. Your peaceful steps create footprints that others can follow back to their own inner home. Your conscious breathing reminds others that they too have access to this simple but profound practice. Your ability to be present without agenda gives others permission to stop performing and simply be themselves. Your inner sanctuary becomes a beacon for those who have forgotten that such a place exists within them. This is how individual healing becomes collective healing. This is how personal transformation contributes to social transformation. Not through force or manipulation or trying to control outcomes, but through the quiet, steady influence of people who have done their inner work and naturally radiate the peace they've discovered. The Buddha's vision was not of isolated individuals achieving personal enlightenment, but of awakened beings, naturally awakening others through their very presence. When you find your way home to yourself, you become a guide for others who are still lost. When you learn to love yourself authentically, you become capable of loving others without condition. When you discover peace within your own being, you become a source of peace in a world that desperately needs it. This is the most practical compassion available to human beings. Rather than trying to save the world through activism that comes from anxiety and anger, rather than attempting to fix others from a place of your own unhealed wounds, you take responsibility for your own inner life. You become the change you want to see, not as a moral obligation, but as a natural expression of your own healing and awakening. Your peace is not a luxury or a privilege. It's your responsibility to the human family. Every moment you choose consciousness over unconsciousness, love over fear, presence over distraction, you're contributing to the collective possibility for peace on this planet. Your inner work becomes your outer service. Your personal healing becomes your gift to the world. And as more people discover this path, as more individuals learn to come home to themselves and naturally radiate that homecoming to others, something beautiful begins to emerge. A new way of being human together, based not on neediness and manipulation and trying to get something from each other, but on the abundance that flows naturally from people who have found their own inner source of happiness and peace. This is the Buddha's ultimate teaching for our time, that the healing our world needs begins with the healing you offer to yourself and spreads outward in ways more powerful and far-reaching than any other force available to human beings. Here's something that might completely transform how you see your loneliness. What if that ache you've been trying to escape, that emptiness you've been trying to fill, that restless seeking that has driven you from one connection to another, what if it has actually been your wisest teacher all along? What if your loneliness isn't a problem to be solved, but a compass pointing you toward the most important journey of your life, the journey home to yourself? This radical reframe changes everything. Instead of seeing loneliness as evidence that something is wrong with you, you begin to recognize it as evidence that something in you is still awake, still seeking, still remembering that there's a deeper way to live than the surface-level connections our culture offers. Your loneliness has intelligence. It knows the difference between real nourishment and empty calories, between authentic connection and digital simulation, between being truly seen and simply being observed. When you feel lonely in a crowded room full of social media, friends, that loneliness is giving you accurate information about the quality of connection available there. When you scroll through your phone for hours and feel emptier afterward, your loneliness is teaching you something important about what actually feeds your spirit and what merely distracts you from your hunger. When you have a conversation that stays entirely on the surface and feel unsatisfied despite the social interaction, your loneliness is pointing you toward your deeper need for authentic intimacy. The discomfort of loneliness has been trying to get your attention, to wake you up from the trance of believing that more external connections will solve an internal problem. It's been serving as a faithful messenger, delivering the same message over and over. This way doesn't lead home. What you're seeking can't be found outside yourself. Turn around and look within. But we've been taught to see loneliness as the enemy, something to be avoided, escaped, medicated, distracted from at all costs. We've learned to fear the very feeling that might be our greatest teacher, our most reliable guide back to ourselves. No wonder we feel lost. We've been running away from our own internal compass. Think about your journey with loneliness over the years. How it first appeared perhaps in childhood, when you felt different from others or struggled to fit in. How it visited you during transitions, moving to a new place, starting a new school or job, ending relationships. How it intensified in our modern world of endless connectivity that somehow left you feeling more isolated than ever. Now, looking back, can you see how your loneliness has been consistently pointing you toward the same truth. That external validation, no matter how abundant, never quite satisfied the deeper need. That surface-level socializing, no matter how frequent, never filled the emptiness. That trying to use other people to complete yourself only created more suffering for everyone involved. Your loneliness has been trying to save you from a life of endless seeking outside yourself for what you already possess within. It has been your protection against settling for connections that diminish rather than nourish you. It has been the voice of your deepest wisdom, refusing to let you forget that you are worthy of real love, real intimacy, real peace, starting with the love, intimacy, and peace you can offer to yourself. There's profound intelligence in emotional discomfort. Just as physical pain alerts you when something in your body needs attention, emotional pain alerts you when something in your life is out of alignment with your deeper truth. Your loneliness has been a sophisticated guidance system, helping you navigate toward authentic connection and away from empty substitutes. When you stop seeing loneliness as your enemy and begin recognizing it as your teacher, everything shifts. Instead of running from the feeling, you can turn toward it with curiosity. Instead of judging yourself for experiencing it, you can appreciate the intelligence it represents. Instead of desperately trying to escape it through external connections, you can listen to what it's trying to tell you about your deepest needs. My dear loneliness, you might say, I've been fighting you for so long, but now I see that you've been trying to help me. You've been pointing me home. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was running in the wrong direction. This gratitude isn't just spiritual bypassing or positive thinking. It's recognizing the actual function that loneliness has served in your life. Without it, you might have settled for a lifetime of superficial connections that never challenged you to grow deeper. Without it, you might have continued seeking outside yourself indefinitely, never discovering the treasure that was always within you. Your loneliness has been preparing you for this moment, the moment when you finally stop running and turn toward home. All those nights of scrolling through your phone feeling empty, all those gatherings where you felt invisible in a crowd, all those relationships that left you feeling more alone than when you were actually alone, they were all part of your education in what real connection is and isn't. You can be grateful for this journey, even the painful parts, because it has led you here, to this understanding that home was never a place you needed to find, or a person you needed to meet, or an achievement you needed to unlock. Home was always here, waiting patiently for your return, breathing quietly in your chest, available with your very next conscious breath. Christmas and the holiday seasons offer particularly powerful opportunities to practice this homecoming. These are times when loneliness often intensifies, when the gap between how we think we should feel and how we actually feel becomes most apparent. Family gatherings can trigger old patterns of seeking approval and acceptance from others. Social expectations can amplify the feeling that everyone else has something you're missing. But Christmas, as Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, is a time when you have to practice going home. Not home to your childhood house or home to the family that may or may not understand you, but home to yourself. Home to the peace that doesn't depend on whether others appreciate you. Home to the love that doesn't require external validation. home to the sanctuary that exists within you regardless of the chaos or joy or complicated dynamics around you. During the holidays, you can practice being present with your family members without needing them to be different than they are. You can offer genuine love without expecting it to be returned in the exact form you prefer. You can participate in traditions and celebrations while remaining grounded in your own inner peace, rather than dependent on the event going perfectly. The gift you become when you stop running from yourself extends far beyond any present you could buy or wrap. When you've learned to be truly at home with yourself, you become someone who can be present with others' loneliness without trying to fix it or take it on as your own. You become someone who can sit with difficulty without making it worse through anxiety or false cheerfulness. Your own journey through loneliness and back to yourself makes you a sanctuary for others who are still wandering. Not because you have answers or advice to give, but because your presence demonstrates that it's possible to find peace within yourself. You become living proof that human beings can learn to be comfortable in their own company, content with their own existence. This is perhaps the greatest gift you can offer during holiday gatherings or any other time, the gift of someone who doesn't need anything from others in order to be okay. Someone who can love without grasping, listen without agenda, be present without performing. Your inner stability becomes a source of peace for everyone who encounters you. Children especially feel this quality in adults who have found their way home to themselves. They sense immediately the difference between adults who are anxious and needy and those who are genuinely at peace. Your own inner work becomes a gift to the next generation, showing them through your example that it's possible to be human without constant suffering, to be alive without constant seeking. The practice that the Buddha offered 2,500 years ago becomes especially relevant during times of celebration and gathering. Every breath, every step, every moment of sitting, every act, like drinking tea with family, preparing food together, even washing dishes after a holiday meal, when done in mindfulness, helps you to go home and to enjoy the wonders of life around you and within you. Your body is a wonder, and so are the bodies of your loved ones gathered around you. The food you share, the laughter that arises naturally, the simple miracle of human beings choosing to spend time together, these are all wonders worthy of your full attention and appreciation. But you can only truly receive these gifts when you're present, when you've come home to yourself enough to be available for genuine connection with others. The hills, the clear streams of water, the winter sky, the lights that people string up to brighten the darkest time of year, these all have the power to heal when you're present enough to receive them. But that presence has to begin with presence to yourself, with the willingness to be here, in your own life, in your own body, in your own experience exactly as it is. This is why your loneliness has been such a perfect teacher. It refused to let you settle for less than authentic presence. It kept pointing you toward the real thing, even when you were convinced the real thing didn't exist. It maintained its signal even when you were doing everything possible to tune it out. Now that you understand its message, you can receive loneliness differently when it arises. Instead of emergency or crisis, it becomes invitation. Instead of evidence of your inadequacy, it becomes evidence of your wisdom. Instead of something to escape, it becomes something to investigate with gentle curiosity. What is this loneliness trying to show me right now? What am I seeking outside myself that I could provide within? How can I come home to myself in this moment? The transformation from seeing loneliness as enemy to seeing it as teacher represents one of the most profound shifts in understanding available to human beings. It means that nothing in your experience has been wasted, nothing has been wrong, nothing has been a mistake. Even your suffering has been intelligent, has been serving your ultimate awakening to your own inherent wholeness. You can trust your loneliness now because you understand what it's really pointing toward. Not toward neediness or desperation or proof that you're fundamentally lacking something, but toward the magnificent possibility of becoming someone who is truly at home in their own existence, who can love without attachment, who can be alone without loneliness, because they've discovered the difference between solitude and isolation. The Buddha understood this when he offered his beautiful teaching about being a lamp unto yourself. He wasn't encouraging isolation or self-reliance in the modern sense. He was pointing toward the same truth your loneliness has been pointing toward, that the light you seek in others already exists within you, that the home you seek in relationships already exists in your own being. Be a lamp unto yourself, he said. Work out your salvation with diligence. Not because you're alone in the universe, but because you're never alone when you're truly present to your own existence. Not because others don't matter, but because you matter enough to offer yourself the same loving attention you've been seeking from everyone else. This is the gift your loneliness has been trying to give you all along, the recognition of your own inherent worth, your own capacity for peace, your own ability to be the source of the love and acceptance you've been seeking everywhere else. It has been your most faithful teacher, your most persistent guide, your most reliable friend, pointing you always in the direction of home. And now, having received this teaching, having learned to come home to yourself, you become a gift to everyone whose life you touch. Your journey through loneliness and back to yourself becomes a path that others can follow. Your peace becomes an invitation for others to find their own peace. Your homecoming becomes a beacon for all who are still wandering, still seeking, still believing they need to find outside themselves what can only be found within. Thank you, loneliness, for never giving up on leading us home. Here we are, at the end of our time together, though really, this is just the beginning. Everything we've explored, the illusion of digital connection, the ancient wisdom of coming home to yourself, the practice of mindful breathing, the art of walking meditation, the transformation of loneliness from enemy to teacher, all of this becomes real in the most simple, immediate way possible. With your next breath. Right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can place one hand on your heart. Feel it beating steadily, faithfully, sustaining your life without any effort on your part. Take one conscious breath, not deep or special or different, just aware. Notice the air flowing in, pausing, flowing out, pausing again. In this simple act, you are already home. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment or the right circumstances or a quieter mind. You don't need to master any techniques or achieve any particular state. The journey home to yourself is always available, always beginning fresh, always as close as your next conscious breath. Every step you take from now on can be a homecoming. Every moment you choose presence over distraction, every time you offer yourself the same kindness you would give to a dear friend, every breath you take with awareness, these become your practice, your path, your gentle revolution against a world that profits from your disconnection. The loneliness that brought you here has served its purpose. It has led you home to the recognition that you were never actually missing anything. You were simply forgetting to look in the right place. If this journey has touched your heart, if something in these words has reminded you of a truth you already knew but had forgotten, then perhaps you'll share this gift with someone else who might be wandering, still seeking outside themselves for what can only be found within. Not because they need fixing or saving, but because your homecoming can serve as a gentle reminder of their own capacity for peace. The ripples of your return to yourself will spread in ways you may never fully know. Your peace will become a love letter to the world. Your presence will become a sanctuary for others. Your breath will become a prayer for all beings who are still searching for home. And in those moments when loneliness visits again, because it will, as an old friend reminding you to check in with yourself, you'll know how to greet it. With a smile, with recognition, with gratitude for its faithful service as your teacher. Hello, my dear loneliness. Thank you for pointing me home. The Buddha's ancient wisdom lives on in your willingness to come home to yourself. 2,500 years of teaching finds its fulfillment in your next conscious breath, your next mindful step, your next moment of being truly present to your own precious existence. Remember this always. You are already whole. You are already home. You are already everything you have been seeking. The journey continues with your next breath. Welcome home.